I don't know, Danielle, you want to take the lead on this one?
Can certainly do that. Again, for clarification related to pay enhancements, this is found in 370.020. For referring to pay enhancements, let me step back. Pay enhancements, that term can be very broad, so I want to try to differentiate where it's important so everybody here understands where there's some differences in pay enhancements. The first category that we'll talk about is the service recognition and longevity. Those are programs that are in some CBAs, not all CBAs. Some of the CBAs have currently phased out these definitions. So I want to stick with focusing on the service recognition and longevity. That's related to when you were hired, what type of pay enhancement or additional percentage of pay based off of your longevity. This here is clearing the fact that employees currently in the program continue to obtain the increases. And I think that, again, has been a question that many of the employees has raised. The second differentiation here is between the performance improvement or performance step program. That term is used, performance step program, because it's utilized in certain contracts. So we often call things PIP in short term. There are some contracts that refer to the performance program as a performance step program. First bullet point under there is clearly stating that this does not eliminate probation or annual step progressions that are part of your normal pay scale. So I want to make sure that that's a clear differentiation. Under the, I'll just use PIP as the example here. Under the PIP programs, there's a number of different programs that exist for departments to manage. That has been clear that the programs are very different. The rules to the programs are very different. The structure of them is fundamentally different. The ordinance indicates that advancements in the program is capped eliminated. So that is a different program, again, than the service rec or longevity. Continuing on, related to pay enhancements, under this section it talks about pay programs. Specialty pay is limited to job-specific requirements that are determined at the classification. It's based on work performed and based on requirements in order to perform the work. So, a clarification here with some examples. There's also some programs that are out there related to special licenses and certifications, and they may be required by state or federal agencies to perform specialized work. That's on change. So here's a clear example. The state requires firefighters performing EMS duties to have an EMT certification. This does not change that. Another example is related to some of our plumbing inspectors. They're required to have certain licenses under their unit, and that does not change here. It doesn't change the pay enhancement associated with that. Now I'm multitasking, so bear with me. Moving on to the next section, I think this is my talking point here. Impacts to classification under 370.060. Clarifications to definition of supervisor and confidential employees. Will had talked about this throughout his presentation. What this is he explained there were some clarifications to that area. Again, the supervisor, what it did is it added a time and attendance as a clarification. The definition that had already been in supervisor had noted that it's related to some or all of the functions. This was just another function that was added for clarification. And I know we've seen some questions related to the classification of positions. Those classification position evaluations, that continues on. They're going to be reviewed prior to each CBA expiration. We'll evaluate any discrepancies as it relates to the ordinance when it's passed, or if it's passed, or how it's passed, because we need to comply with the law. And then if necessary, we're going to seek clarification from the Employee Relations Board.
Managed competition is a concept, is said before, is out there, Indianapolis, Seattle, San Diego. The federal government does a version where the bargaining units get a 10% advantage over other bidders. This is one that we're allowing for it, and but there's still a lot of implementation and a lot of process coming on implementation. For managed competition, I mean, first, determine the service is something that could or should be sent to bid, develop a fair and open bidding process and how to include the bargaining unit, what parts of the bargaining unit or what facilities, what equipment is to be used, develop the scope and terms of the bid, and then establish criteria for monitoring the contract. The big point, at least seems like, from everything I hear, is our clarification on impasse resolution. Under the proposed amended 370, the way it would work is the parties would negotiate, and if an agreement has not been reached, they go to neutral mediation, either agree on a mediator or the Employee Relations Board can appoint a neutral. 50% share cost of the mediator, and the focus is on attempting a voluntary agreement. If that does not work, then the Employee Relations Board will appoint a neutral fact finder. And that is exactly how it works under our current process up to that point. If the parties still cannot reach an agreement, they get 15 days after the fact finder's report to try to come to an agreement. If they don't, the findings of the fact finder will be made public. And the fact finder will say, this is what I think the contract should be, and provide reasoning. This is what wage rates are. This is what budget issues are. This is what is safe. This is what should be in the contract. The parties then get another chance to come to an agreement. This is where we vary from the current process in that if an agreement's not reached, it does not go to arbitration. We do not have Class 1, Class 2, and Class 3 union. The two last best offers go to the Assembly for the Assembly to pick one or the other. Kind of the advantages of this process is that one, it's going to speed up the process. Arbitration adds at least 45, if not 90 days to the process and costs a lot of money. For essentially going over the same territory that the fact finders already looked at. The arbitration process also provides for a lot more gamesmanship, both prior to fact finding and prior to the arbitration as to what is offered. We believe this process will put more pressure on the parties to make a good last best offer, to not hold things back, to not stay on ridiculous positions just for leverage in the arbitration process. And then ultimately, it is a better process in that if a contract is approved, it's approved by the Assembly. It's not approved by some third party who may even be from Portland or Seattle, who doesn't have to pay the bill, who doesn't know anything about the bargaining unit, who is not responsive to any constituents. Instead, it's done in a fair and open public process by our elected representatives, elected by everyone in the municipality. And that is something that could go both ways, either for or against management. This is a topic I've sent a number of citations to people over the last week. The questions come up. Public collective bargaining is very different from private. 22 states do not allow public workers to even organize. Only 11 states allow any public workers to strike. And I say states, not cities, and the reason for that is we're very unique in Alaska in that when the PARA, the state Labor Relations Act was passed, it allowed home rule municipalities to opt out, which is what we did. So we have our own labor regulations in this city. The U.S. Supreme Court said public employees have no inherent right to strike. That was reinforced by the Alaska Supreme Court in the Anchorage education case, and recently upheld by the Superior Court. The Supreme Court in a number of cases has recognized that the public labor relations is an inherently political process. That decisions are made by this body that is elected by the people. Whether you're in a labor union or not, this is our elected representatives. They're available to us, and the process is open. It's not a distant boardroom where they meet in secret and only responsive to themselves or their shareholders. It's a different process. The other thing to point out, and why don't we go to the next one? City and Borough of Juneau has had this process. It's proposed in the ordinance since 1974, and it's worked very well there. I've heard it, and as you know, we've got litigation with one of our unions regarding the right to strike, and it was repeated many times that the right to strike is the union's only economic leverage to get a deal. And it is a very strong economic leverage to have the right to strike, no doubt about it. However, in public practice, unlike private, there is no offsetting leverage for management, because both the union and management are providing public services. And management does not have the option of saying, we like labor relations in Fairbanks, we're going to move there. You know, Boeing, if they don't like it in Everett, they move to North Carolina. And management doesn't have the option of doing as Hostess did, declare bankruptcy, sell off the assets, close the doors. If a public union strikes, management can't lock them out. People still need their water, they need their electricity, they need their police force. So neither management nor labor has an advantage when the assembly makes the final decision. And I think we get to go on to benefit programs.
Moving on to the standardization of benefit programs under 37170. The goal of standardization. Another talking point that I just want to draw to the attention is this gets to be a question is, what about other benefit programs? Well, there's still the flexibility to negotiate benefits. That's not being changed. This is really specific to certain benefits that affect, the majority of our employees or those that are participating in a municipal, for example, a municipal health program. That's where we're talking about establishing a competitive suite of benefits for the employees that may be interested in the municipal offering. So it's a competitive program for a benefits suite of options. Consistent MOA contribution across all unions or employees. Consistent benefit program for all unions and employees. We're going to go into more detail some of the differences just to raise the attention here for examples. We talk about the number of 600 or 680. There are over 680 different combinations of eligibility to maintain the benefit programs for the MOA-sponsored plans and non-sponsored plans. Keep in mind, there are some unions that do have different benefit programs outside of the municipality. This does not change that as an option for those unions. Under the health plan, the municipal health plan, we have 6 unions that do participate in the program. Roughly 2,200 employees are covered under that program. Within that program, there are 10 different health plans and inconsistencies related to who can and who cannot opt out of the health insurance option. Under the voluntary life program at the municipality, we have 13 varieties of levels of coverage. Voluntary short-term disability, 6 different levels of options of coverage. The variations continue on as it relates to different life insurance that the MOA pays, different long-term disability programs, There is an administrative fee that is set in the overseeing cafeteria plan. It's intended that it's paid by all employees. In reality, the MOA is paying for that in most of the cases. We also have inconsistencies among the employee assistant program. That's a benefit that the MOA sponsors. Continuing on with the standardization of programs, focusing on the leave programs. The uniform leave donation program, that's related to the employees that are looking to donate their annual leave to another employee who may be in need. They may be going through a medical condition and they're out of their annual leave. What this does, it simplifies the program where right now we have a difference of 6 qualified and 3 non-qualified. It's very confusing for employees who want to donate, who gets taxed, who doesn't get taxed. And we want to resolve that complicated tax issue here. And of course, comply with the federal regulations under the IRS.